All right, so we're loading the beta version. Again, this is taken, we're probably 2 minutes into this now, so this, I don't know how much of this is my internet connection or how much of this is the fact that I have a couple thousand transactions saved. So hopefully yours will be faster than mine. When we did do the class a couple of weeks ago, once we were in, it was pretty snappy and things went pretty quick. But while we're waiting for this to load, let's go back to our checklist. This is the checklist that you see in SkySlope. So, transfer disclosure statement is going to be required on everything. You know, you're not going to get away from a transfer disclosure statement. Wait a minute, Lance. What if it's a REO? Okay, that exempts the seller from filling out the TDS, but it doesn't exempt the listing agent from at a minimum filling out their portion of the TDS and the avid. Okay. So just because the seller says, I am exempt from this, okay, we're going to finish the TDS today. The SPQ, Seller's Property Questionnaire, we're going to go through that. That's pretty straightforward, standard stuff. One of the things that I don't like about the SPQ is the SPQ is so redundant. There's a lot of stuff on the TDS that's on the Seller's Property Questionnaire. Also a lot of stuff on the statewide buyers and sellers, just the same questions over and over and over. So as you're explaining that stuff to your clients, okay, I didn't give you any feedback, did I?
Continue.
Okay. But as you're explaining that stuff to your clients, it can be a little difficult. You got to be careful, I guess is what I'm trying to say, because if you're going to put all the disclosures in front of them at the time you're doing the listing agreement, and you just went through a TDS, and now say, oh, by the way, now we're going to do an SPQ, they're immediately going to say, well, gosh, I already answered that over there. I get it.
Yes.
You already answered it over there. We're going to answer it again. So just be prepared to go through that. Okay, so here I am in my Zip Forms Plus beta version. As you can tell, there's just a lot of transactions in here. That's, again, one. I think that's just why it takes so long to load. I believe, didn't I create one called training last time? Did I do that?
I think so.
Let's see.
Help out one anyway.
Let's see if it's going to let me search. Actually, it's not letting me do anything. I typed the word T and it said that was enough.
You overworked it.
I did. It's another thing I noticed. I don't know if you guys have had this experience, but my taskbar gets stuck, which creates a problem when I have this thing I need to open up. Can't use the taskbar. You can't. Man, my computer I think is not much longer for the living in.
What kind is it? Just trying to read the thing on the
This,
back.
it's a Lenovo. It's an IBM ThinkPad, but that's a Lenovo. Okay, it doesn't seem to want to pull up what I want, my training, so we're just going to grab one. We'll just grab this, actually, let's grab Back Bay. Okay, so we're going to load an existing transaction that we have on Back Bay, and let's go to our TDS. Maybe we've got a TDS in here already, maybe we don't. We'll find out here in a minute.
That's an REO,
Yep.
and
No TDS?
we haven't done TDS since
Okay.
we've had the REO advisory.
Okay, well, we're going to create one.
And then we'll just do
This
the
is a
other.
real live transaction, so Janet's, so don't touch my transaction.
No, go ahead, touch it.
Good, because I'm going to touch it. Touch
I
it.
don't care.
Killing
I'm
it.
going to touch it. I'm going to feel it.
She says, kill it.
Do whatever you
We're going
want.
to do it. Okay, so what am I looking for? A real estate transfer disclosure statement?
Uh-huh. No, TDS.
TDS.
I understand that. What's its real name?
TDS.
Transfer disclosure
statement.
How come I can't find it?
RST.
Oh, there we go. Real estate
RS.
transfer. Yeah, so
Oh,
there's,
we're gonna teach
so
you how
there
to
we
spell
are.
real estate?
Real estate transfer disclosure statement, better known as our TDS. So, and for those of you that are kind of new to this week's class, just remember that you can go watch the video for last week's class, and you can catch up with the agency if you did the TDS. So again, and by the way, I'm learning the new Zip Forms myself, so I think I'm just going to double click this. I'm going to open up our TDS. We're going to review page 1, which we covered last time. We're going to review page 2, which we covered last time, and then we're going to start pressing on. Okay, so here we are. Again, for review, we've got a TDS. I am going to pretend for the moment I am the listing agent. I am doing my job well, which means at the time I sign the listing agreement, I'm going to say, great, now let's go through the stack of 300 pages of disclosures, okay? We might as well start with the TDS, okay? So, we've got, some of this is filled out for Edgemont, so it's not all there or not. Actually, I thought we opened a different one, but at any rate. So we're in the city of Marina Valley, we're in the county of Riverside, which needs to be filled out. We've got our address here, we've got our date. This is the date of what? The date we're signing the TDS, okay? So this disclosure concerns yada yada, this statement and disclosure of conditions by reference property in compliance with section as of today, okay? If the condition of the property changes tomorrow,
Do a new one.
we need to amend this. I take the listing today, the roof doesn't leak. Tomorrow it rains or the roof leaks. Hey Lance, my roof leaks. Oh, okay. We need to amend our transfer disclosure statement. Yes.
Would you do that on an addendum, or
You
just
could. I actually would drag
just do
this one
another-
back out.
Uh-huh.
Maybe do a new one.
Mm-hmm.
Fresh date. Now, the better example is the roof has not leaked for the 20 years I've owned the house. The roof has not leaked at the time I signed the listing agreement with Michael. I am now 2 days away from close of escrow, and I get a massive rain, and just a little. Right? Wrong. Okay. Yeah, the dreaded,
Right.
it happens before close of escrow. Well, if it's a dishwasher, that's kind of an easier one. Hey, the dishwasher broke. Darn it. Okay, we'll go fix it. Go put another one in. Spend $300, put a new dishwasher. I'll call the buyer today. The dishwasher broke last night. Oh, by the way, just wait, let the homeowner take care of it. What's that called? That's called insurance fraud.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Telling the parties involved, don't worry,
Mm-hmm.
it's only a dishwasher. It's covered under the home warranty. Just wait a few days after close of escrow and call them. That is insurance fraud. And if you are involved in that, you are accessory to committing insurance fraud. Does that happen all the time? It happens all the time. We don't do that. Okay, let's go back to my roof example though. Is it a little more difficult to deal with that roof? It's not a $300 dishwasher. It could be a $300 repair. But when you tell the buyer the dishwasher broke, the buyer's not normally as freaked out about a $300 dishwasher as they could be. Oh, I know we were gonna close escrow tomorrow, but you know that rain we had last night?
They were 5,000 for the roof.
And normally delays, okay?
Long
We gotta find out. Time out, we're not closing escrow.
Right.
We gotta get the roof inspector out, now we need a certification. So what we thought was gonna be an escrow that's gonna close tomorrow, now could be delayed a day, a week, or permanently, okay? So we all have to resist it, and I don't mean just us as agents, we have to resist our seller's temptation to start sweeping things under the rug, okay? So obviously, if we have knowledge, we disclose it. So this is as of course, the date, but if anything changes, you have to acknowledge that. Again, I can't take as much time as I just did on that, because we'll never get through the rest of this, and we already covered this. If we have any supplemental reports, this is where they go. I have a copy of a termite report. Agents very rarely do this, but technically, if you already have a copy of a termite report in hand, if you already have a copy of a septic report in hand, if you already have a copy of a home inspection in hand, you're supposed to check the box, fill it in. And here it is. It's part of the TDS. Okay? Now, in most cases, those reports come after the fact. Okay? But if you have an escrow maybe that's fallen out, by the way, if you have an escrow that's fallen out, maybe the TDS was done months before, maybe it's got some initials on it, maybe it's 3 or 4 days or months old, take a few minutes and do a new TDS. Okay? Let's get a new TDS put together. And for that matter, let's get all new disclosures. It's not going in white out first buyer's initials and signatures. That's tacky, unprofessional, borderline, potentially could make that disclosure, void or invalid because, wait a minute, what's going on? There's white all over the place.
I'm assuming you're saying that because somebody has done
Everything we don't make anything up here. These are all real life examples. Okay, buyer or seller is or is not occupying the property, very important. Be honest. I haven't occupied the property, it is a rental, I live in Florida, I haven't seen it in 10 years. That gives that seller a much different burden of responsibility to disclose known defects than the person who has lived in the house for 10 years. Now, just because it's a rental and they haven't lived in the property for 10 years or seen the property for 10 years, if the seller has direct knowledge that the property management company has done A, B, C, and D, and one of those items is a lingering roof leak, well, you can't say, well, I never saw it, I haven't been there in town, you know. Well, because at a later date, someone's going to subpoena documents and they're going to see, well, you did know. You had a bunch of emails and a bunch of communication, and it looks like you've been going back and forth for 2 years over this same roof leak. So you be careful with that. Just because they haven't seen the property doesn't mean they're not responsible for these things. Here's our items that we're going to list. You check the boxes that apply. Couldn't be more simple than that. Down here, you get to add a few other things. I always thought this was kind of silly. Where's the exhaust fan? Boy, that's important. It gets its own line. And where do we normally find exhaust fans in a house? Bathrooms and
Over the stove?
kitchen. Normally that's the case. So where are they? In the bathrooms? 220 volt wiring. Who's an electrician in here? I didn't think so. Okay, normally you ask your seller that. Normally if you have 220 volt wiring, it will be located in the garage, maybe the laundry room kind of a thing. Or possibly I've got an electric stove, I got 220. But you be careful with that. If you're not, I'm not really, I think I got 220. Unknown. Is that acceptable? Absolutely acceptable. We don't guess. You never. You don't want to say there's 220 volt wiring in the garage because it had a funky plug. You know, you see one of those plugs? Like, what the hell do you plug into that thing? Well, it must be 220. Well, don't say it's 220 because the buyer comes in, they need 220, they plug it in. That ain't 220. Okay, well now what? Well, we got a disclosure problem. Okay? So, there's nothing wrong with saying I don't know. Fireplaces, where are they? They're in the living room, they're in the master bedroom, whatever it happens to be. Does it have a gas? I always find that interesting too. The gas starter gets its own line. Okay? Yep, it's got a gas starter. All right? What kind of roof do we have? We've got a roof. What type is it? Don't guess. If you know it's a composition shingle, you type it. If it's tile, I don't know, is it concrete tile? Is it clay tile? Is it some other type of tile? Don't guess. There's nothing wrong with saying type of roof unknown, age of roof unknown. Even if the seller doesn't know. Let's say a lot of people have lived in their house for a long time, but they're not the original owner. Well, I don't know. It looked old when I got here, or it looked new when I got here, but I don't really know when it was replaced. Saying unknown is perfectly fine. Anything other that you want to note? I have a gazebo, which actually that's on there somewhere. That would be a bad example. Okay, are there, to the best of your knowledge, seller, any of the following not in working operation? Yes or no? Very simple question. Most people are going to say, not in operating condition. No, that's what we want, right? We want our seller to say no, because that makes our life so much easier. Well, if you say no, then everything up here works. Everything. So just make sure when you say no, that everything up there works. I used the example, I think, in the last class, and I paid for these. And Debbie was not joking earlier when she said that was a real-life example. I don't make any of my stories up. These are all real life. Most every negative story I tell in here is my own story, and it cost me money. I'll give you a silly one. Everything in working order? Yes. What's one of the things that we are saying that the property has?
Window screens.
Window screens. I don't know what it is about that little window screen in the upstairs bathroom. That little window screen in the upstairs bathroom always seems to be gone. Okay? Well, we said it was there. The buyers and their agent now do a walkthrough, and what do they discover?
There's no screen.
A little screen up there. Well, those little screens, 30, 40, 50 bucks. A pain in the butt. The seller want to pay for it? Well, geez, Lance, that's great. I've lived here for 10 years. I've never had a screen there. It's really not that big a deal. Yeah, I know, but you remember over here, we said you had window screens, and now we don't. So you need to have these conversations with your seller to make sure, it might not necessarily have been the type of thing. Are we supposed to do a reasonable visual inspection at it? Or one of the things that potentially we should be able to notice is a missing screen?
Yeah.
Yeah. If we end up in small claims court, is it possible that the judge might say, you could have seen that? Yeah. So be prepared for that. So everything, if you're checking yes, now again, there's nothing wrong with checking no. Master bedroom, bathroom, window screen, missing. By the way, if you're going to disclose it, you're going to put that on there to me, that means it's missing and I'm not going to fix it. Okay? Not going to fix it. Now, if you would sit down with your seller and you realize, hey, you've got 2 missing screens, one here and one here, and the seller says, okay, I'll get that taken care of before close of escrow. Okay. But now I'm going to check yes again. And I'm going to remind you 2 window screens before close of escrow. Okay? Stove, missing. Hot water heater's got a leak. You're going to fix that before close of escrow? Yes. Okay, then I'm going to put that everything is in working order. Now you might, wait a minute, Lance, but it says on this date it's a problem. I got you. I'm fudging it a little bit. But if Shirley says, I'm going to replace the screen before escrow close, I'm going to take you at face value and I'm going to remind you of that if you don't do it beforehand. And if you don't, then I'm probably going to be the one that's going to be paying for it. Okay, so anything on operating condition? Yes, everything's fine. Page 2. Again, you got a few other things in here. Are you the seller aware of any significant defects? Again, I hate the word significant. It's very subjective. What's significant to Matt may not be significant to me. Gosh, that's tough. Defects or malfunctions in any of the following. These are your followings, yes or no. Covers the gamut. Any significant defects in any of this? And what do we want to check here, right? We want to check no, not aware of anything. You know, my house is pretty nice. I could probably check yes. Something's wrong. You know, I got a problem with it. I got a couple windows that don't close the way they should. Was that significant? Depends who you are. If you're the buyer, it could be. If you're the seller, oh, come on, you just wait.
If you're a burglar, it could be significant.
Yeah, well, there you go. So when you put it down, be careful what you put down and be careful what you don't put down, okay? And you can, as it says, if there's any additional stuff, you need more explanation, then attach additional sheets. Give the narrative as to why the drainage comes off the hillside a little funky and it flows to the left before it flows to the right, and every 10 years the side of my house floods. That's something you can put on here? Oh, I don't, every 10 years? Oh, that's not very often. We don't have to put that down. Okay, well, you have knowledge. Then the season comes in, they talk to the neighbor. Oh yeah, didn't Lance tell you? Oh my gosh, yeah, last time this happened. Woo! Man, it took 2 weeks to get the house dried out. Be careful. We disclose everything, especially material defects. Okay, I'm not going to go through these individually. We went through these in the last class. Yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. Again, just be careful. And by the way, in a perfect world, who fills this form out? Who's checking these boxes? Seller. Of course, we all know that the problem with giving the pen to the seller and going over this form with the seller, it's going to take how much time to fill this form out? A lot longer than if we just say, okay, this, yes, yes, no. We know what the form is. We know they don't know what they're looking at. It's a brand new form. It takes a lot of time. In a perfect world, we allow the seller to fill this out. Which in some cases, and by the way, there's nothing wrong. I've taken my listing. What is the minimum I need before I leave your house? I need a listing agreement and an agency disclosure. I have a valid listing. There is nothing wrong. When I was an active listing agent dealing with the public, to be honest with you, I would much rather do a 3-hour listing presentation and leave with all of my forms signed, even if it took me an extra 2 hours, as opposed to saying, okay, I got my listing agreement, thank you very much, we're going to get the sign going, I got my agency, thank you very much, we're good to go. By the way, Debbie, I'm going to leave you this stack of papers. Why don't you fill those out? I'll come back and I'll do them next week or tomorrow. Now again, that's acceptable. Having said that, I don't think that's best practice. Sit down with your client, go through it, explain them all to them, because you're going to have to explain them to them anyway. Okay, I got him back. I see you missed a couple things, right? Because of course they do. Okay. I just want to make sure I understand. I see on your TDS that you said there's no defects anywhere. You know, you understand, Shirley, I have to do a visual inspection myself, and gosh, I haven't actually done it yet. But when I was out there, I kind of just did a preliminary inspection, which, by the way, if you are doing your listing, you're doing it all together, in a perfect world, I get the listing. And again, I'm not kidding about a 3-hour session. Okay, let's suppose I go in and the fact that I'm getting the listing is not determined yet. Okay, within 45 minutes to an hour, I know whether I got that listing. Okay, let's say it takes me an hour. Hey, we ready to go? You like what you see? Great. Boom. Okay. By the way, I've got a bunch of other paperwork. Do you have another hour and a half or so we can get through this? Well, most of the time the answer to that's going to be okay. Take the extra 2 hours. Go through and buy it. Hey, you know what? I got to do an inspection. Can we take a few minutes now? Let's go through. Let's do this together. I noticed that you said everything was fine. I walked in the front door and I saw what looked like a really funky stain on the side of the garage. Looked like something was funky going on with the roof and the way it came together. And, you know, put all that stuff down. But tell your seller if you're going to have to challenge him. One thing that I do want to, and we kind of joked about it at the last training class, but this one to me summarizes all of them. You're asking the seller, are there any neighborhood or noise problems? By the way, let's remember what the question. Are you, seller, aware of any of the following? Neighborhood, noise problems, or other nuisances? No. Okay. If they tell you, well, the reason I'm selling is those damn kids across the street. Okay. And then all of a sudden you have a no. What do you now have?
Knowledge.
You have absolute knowledge. And now, of course, when you call them on it, those damn kids are, oh, they're really not that bad.
But I'm moving anyway.
Right. But you know they are that bad. Okay? Has to be. Even if your seller then starts to retreat, and you're, oh, no, I didn't really mean that. I know I called them gang members when I talked to you last night, but today they're just a couple kids. Okay, well, if they refuse to modify that, we're going to put on our evidence. Seller indicated to me reason for move is, ooh, wait a minute. Now I violated my confidentiality with my seller. Have I? That's in my opinion, that is a material fact. We have the duty to disclose material facts. I had a buyer. Fortunately, we didn't have a disclosure issue here, but I had a buyer, honest to God, true story, bought a house on Mohican, over here off of Kitchen and Garcia-ish. Moved into the property on a Saturday. It was a vacant Fannie Mae REO, so I didn't have any neighborhood conditions that I was aware of. Fannie Mae never disclosed, or didn't have to disclose because they didn't know there was a problem. And we closed escrow. The people moved in on a Saturday. They come back to me, the buyer, who was not my buyer. The buyer was represented by somebody else. Comes into my office on Monday. I want to sign up for property management service.
Oh.
My first thought was, you guys committed fraud. You bought this as an owner-occupant. Now you're coming to me. That wasn't what happened. They moved into the property on Saturday. Wife was terrified. Neighborhood nuisance. Whole block, apparently. Okay? Big problems. Gang members over here, halfway house over here, drug dealer over there, whatever it happened to be. They never moved into the house. They were there for a day and left. Now, had I had knowledge of that, or had my seller had knowledge of that, and we didn't disclose it, and then they get there, and then the good neighbor next door comes over and says, oh my God, did they tell you? Tell me what? Well, these guys, we've been doing battle with them. Boy, Lance was the leader of the neighborhood watch, and they chased him out. I can't believe he didn't tell you all about it. Matter of fact, you're the new block captain for Neighborhood Watch. Here's Lance's book. Didn't he tell you? So anyway, material defects have to be disclosed no matter what, period. Okay? All right. Now, seller certifies that the property, as of close of escrow, will be in compliance with health and safety code, smoke detector, water heater, straps, yada, yada, yada. Okay? Seller certifies it as a close of escrow will be in compliance with health and safety codes, yada, 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 yada. Seller signs and dates. So far, so good?
Parking dogs, okay? And say 9, 10 o'clock at night?
Is that, I disclose it. I disclose that. To keep you up at night, every single night? You'd roll over and turn to your wife, "Oh, goddamn dogs." Neighborhood nuisance, or, what was the other question? What was the other part? Noise. Isn't that what it said? Let's go back up.
Yeah, I'm just making sure.
Neighborhood nuisance, or, oops, oh,
Noise
neighborhood
problems.
noise problems.
It's a
10 o'clock at night, 6 o'clock in the morning. Nuisance, noise problems. Gotta disclose
Sound
it.
effects.
Gotta disclose it. Okay,
You talked
so here's our
about
Avid.
it.
I used to do this all the time. I've been told, stop it, stop it, stop it. Check the box. Agent has noticed no significant defects with the property. Seller's disclosure appears fine. Agent recommends the buyer obtain an independent third-party inspector to satisfy themselves as to all conditions related to the subject property. That was my legalese get-out-of-jail-free card. Guess what? See our attorneys say, no. Don't write that. Don't do that. Do your Avid. Now again, is an Avid required?
Mhm.
We require it. It's not required by law. Transfer disclosure is required by law. The Avid has kind of just become the acceptable requirement because a lot of brokers are trying to cover themselves with E&O policies and due diligence and loss mitigation. So we feel if we do an Avid, we're that much more protected. So most offices, including ours, are saying, give us an Avid, okay? But it's not required by law. Okay, oh, it's required by law. It's not required by law. Your broker wants it. Don't fight other brokers over an Avid. Well, it's not required by law. Do the damn thing, okay? You're much better off doing it, believe me, than not doing it. And I've done plenty of transactions without them, and I shouldn't. Okay, so do the darn Avids. So we're going to check the box, see attached. Avid, signed by the agent, and then of course the other agent's going to do the same thing, right? And then the seller's going to acknowledge a receipt, and the buyer's going to acknowledge a receipt, and I'm going to sign it, and the other agent's going to sign it, right? All right, fair enough. Okay, so there is our transfer disclosure statement. Now, don't think we're done with the transfer disclosure statement because so many of these other forms are really just an offshoot of the transfer disclosure statement. So if we find something on another form that we have disclosed and we somehow have left that off the transfer disclosure statement, we got to go put that back on the TDS. We forgot about that. So let's go to our next one. Our SPQ, the lovely seller's property questionnaire, required. Let's pull that one up. And I do like the new format of this. It seems kind
Supposed
of
to do it
nice.
on this side.
What's that?
Do it on this side.
This side?
If
My
it's-
forms?
if it exists.
Oh, I don't know if it's on here or not. Doesn't look like it's on
Okay.
here.
Yeah, because it's audio.
Okay.
Yeah. What can I
Oh,
do?
it's an REO, yeah,
Oh,
okay.
what did I
Sorry,
do? Look what you've done to me.
sorry.
Oh boy. How do I get this to go away? Oh, there we go. There we go. Thanks, Michael.
Sorry, Lance.
Good eye, Michael.
Okay, seller's property questionnaire.
And Lance,
Yes. Oh, by the way, please engage.
I do the SSD on REOs because that's the only place
Yep.
where we can identify HOA.
Okay.
So is it, anyway.
No,
is it-
that's fine. We're gonna talk about that. Where is the seller's property questionnaire? Is it called something else?
SPQ.
SPQ.
Yeah, but isn't it called the seller's property questionnaire?
Seller property questionnaire.
There it is, right down the bottom.
There it is.
Ah,
There
there
it
we go.
is.
Seller's property questionnaire. Right where it should be, alphabetically sorted.
We'll teach you that.
Okay.
Double click.
Okay. That's kind of weird. I guess it just pulled up and took me to the. Okay, so here we are. Here we are with our SPQ. Let's make sure we got everything here we need. Looks like we do. Okay. All right. So let's pull this up. And again, I'm not going to read this form to you guys. I think I get the general purpose. We're going to go through this. But again, Think TDS. Think transfer disclosure statement when you're filling these out. But having said that, this form is not a substitute for the real estate transfer disclosure statement. It is used by the seller to provide additional information when the TDS is completed or when no TDS is required, REO. Okay? Which, by the way, do the banks fill these out? Can you, as an agent, fill out a SP, you're not the seller, could you fill this out if you felt it was material and just put on here Lance's disclosure? You could. I don't know if this is the best place to put it, but not necessarily know that I would recommend it. This is obviously designed for the seller. Okay, seller makes the following disclosures with regard to real property or manufactured home described as address, da, 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 da. The following representations made by the seller. So forget about what I just said. You would have to modify this form so much because this has said seller, 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 seller. So we're never going to use this form. Unless otherwise specified in a writing, broker and real estate licensee or other persons working through the broker has not verified information provided by the seller, because whose report is this? This is the seller's, and who is making these disclosures?
Seller.
The seller is making their disclosures. Okay. A real estate broker is qualified to advise on real estate transactions. If a seller or buyer desire legal advice, they should consult an attorney. I mentioned many classes, I'm a general contractor. Oops. Anybody in here a roofer? Let's pretend you were. I'm a roofer by day, real estate professional. Okay? You walk up to your listing, you look at the roof, you have knowledge. Now the roof doesn't leak, the seller discloses the roof doesn't leak, you're a roofer. You're right, it doesn't leak by the grace of God. Okay? So, you have knowledge, you got to disclose. So again, be careful if you do have specialty knowledges. Okay? And because right now it says we don't. It says all we are is lowly brokers. We don't know anything. Okay, note to the seller. Purpose. Tell the buyer about, again, here we go, known material or significant items. Purpose of this is to disclose known material, significant items affecting value or desirability of the subject property. In my mind, we talked about this in a prior class, how do you define, forget about the legal definition of material, defect, or significant item. I say the practical definition is, if the buyer knew, would they choose to pay that price or even proceed with the transaction? That's my definition. Well, I don't know, is it significant or not? Let's ask ourselves a question. If we told the buyer, would they give us $220 or would they even buy the house at all? Okay, well if I was the buyer, I don't think I'd pay $220. Well then you're going significant. Now, if I was the buyer, I don't think I'd buy the house. Well, then it's certainly significant and probably material. Okay? So anything that's going to affect the buyer's decision on moving forward with the transaction. Answer based on actual knowledge. Recollection is fine. Something that you do not consider material or significant may be perceived differently by the buyer. There you go. Okay. Think about what you would want to know if you were buying the property. You can put yourself in the buyer's shoes. That's what they're talking to the seller. Read the questions carefully. Take your time. But we got to get out of here. I got another appointment. I can't take 3.5 hour listing presentation. Are you kidding me, Lance? No, I'm not kidding you. Okay. Now, if it let me rephrase that. If you're in the house and 3.5 hours later you still don't have a signed listing agreement, you probably stayed too long. Okay? Now, if you're in the house and within an hour you have a signed listing presentation, listing agreement, and now 2.5 hours later you're there building your file, fantastic. My first listing presentation was 3.5 hours. I left that house with nothing signed. The people were too damn nice to throw me out. But I was, 20 years old and didn't know what the hell I was doing. Okay, so here we are. So, read it carefully. Note to buyer. Okay, so here we are. Everybody gets a little note. Seller gets some instructions. Buyer gets some instructions. Note to the buyer. Purpose. Give you more information. Material or significant items. It's all about. can say the same thing for the TDSs. All this is about, we need to disclose, disclose, disclose. Disclosures are all about mitigating loss. It's really, it's all we're doing. Somebody got sued over this, now it's in the law. Somebody got sued over this and this and this and this and this and this and this. Because these never existed before. Every year we add an extra line. And there you go. Okay, is it material facts? Is it something that is important to you? Be sure you put your questions in writing. Sellers can only disclose what they actually know. Be reasonable, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer. Okay, don't beat up your agent or don't beat up the seller for something that was truly hidden behind this wall that we couldn't see. Now, if it was known and then covered up and hidden, that's a different story. But you can only disclose what you see. Termite inspection is a perfect example. Does the termite guy go tear off every stick of drywall in the house and inspect the wood? Of course not. Does he go in the attic and pull all the insulation out so he can see what? Of course not. That's not practical. You know? So they got to see what they can see. It's not reasonable, and legally they're not held responsible, if using this termite example, if they miss something behind this drywall. The house is perfect. 3 days after close of escrow, anybody seen a little kick-out hole for drywood termites? Little hole appears, and all of a sudden the termites in there spitting out little, you know what those little pellets are that are coming down? Termite poop. It looks like a little grain of sand. Next thing you've got a whole bunch of little pellets down there. Honey, we got a little beach coming down here and everything. And all of a sudden one hits you in the head. And you look up, and there's a little termite pushing his poop out the hole because they need more room. Okay. Termite guy screwed up. Come on. There weren't any pellets on the floor before close of escrow. There wasn't any hole up here. He just kicked out 2 days ago. Cannot hold him responsible. Same thing for you and I and the seller and all the rest of that. Only what we can actually know is what they have to disclose. Seller disclosures are not a substitute. I love this one. Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, seller's disclosures are not a substitute for your own investigation, personal judgments, or common sense.
Common sense ain't so common.
Yeah,
That's right.
it's a tough one.
Uncommon.
No one told me the house faced the south. Who's into feng shui? Anybody know feng shui? Okay, what's the
Oh,
appropriate
no, I'm sorry,
one?
I'm just thinking about a client who
Well, I don't know what it is.
yeah.
It's not supposed.
It's that perception, a lot of people from the East have
Right.
it, like
Chinese
the
are
house
big
has
feng
to
shui.
face a certain way,
Right.
otherwise
Right.
it's bad
Well,
luck.
I don't know what it is, but let's pretend I'm Chinese and let's pretend that's important to me.
Yeah.
Well, I should know what that is. I should know that the house has to be oriented to the, I think it's to the east.
Yeah.
The front door has to face east. East.
That one.
Okay? Right?
But the stairs can't
Now.
face the door.
Now,
Right.
okay, there you go. All right. So, and again, I don't know all those things, but let's suppose that's important to me. Does a seller, is there anywhere on here that says, what's the orientation of the front door, north, south, east, or west? No. Does the seller have to disclose that? No. It's important to the buyer, but we didn't know that. Okay? And now we close escrow, and I just discovered my feng shui master came over and told me my house is facing southeast. Come on, buyer. Own investigations, personal judgments, and common sense. Okay, I will tell you, if any of you have the good fortune of working with a Chinese buyer who buys into the whole feng shui thing, you better understand what they want. Because it's not just which way it faces. There has to be water flowing somewhere. Staircases have to go certain directions. That's important. We make that's hocus pocus to us. Nonsense. It is not hocus pocus. This
Yeah.
is serious business for these buyers.
Right. And they don't make an offer on it either.
There you go.
You know, it's like, no, I'm sorry, the backyard is you know, and
But-
it's making this tea, and I'm like,
Shirley, could you help me out here?
Huh.
I'm a little disoriented. Which way is east? East is that way. Oh, okay, this is a good one. Right?
yeah,
Now, that's a reasonable question,
right,
but you just answered wrong, because that's north.
yeah.
Yeah,
East-
that's-
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So,
Mm-hmm.
could you see a lawsuit developing over that? Come on, you're a real
East
estate
Edge,
professional.
you could.
You should know
You
which
should
way
know
is
that.
east. Be honest, does everybody know that East was that way before we started this conversation? Everybody?
Yeah.
Michael? You did?
I
Okay.
do, because I know.
I guarantee
Normally
you,
you would-
if we did a poll of everybody in this office, I bet at least 20% of them would not know which way East is.
No.
You wouldn't.
I'm just saying, just saying.
I would just say as a general observation, I don't know if everybody agrees with this, but I mean, I could probably find, east, west, north, south here, but if I was over in
There you
Temecula
go.
or San Bernardino, I might
Right,
get a little
well, we're
further
familiar
around.
with our town, this is our town.
Yeah.
Right, now I'm a little disoriented. Wait, which was the freeway going?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know,
Exactly.
I always got confused because I grew up in the Lakewood Long Beach area, and the beach was always supposed to be on the west, right?
Yeah,
Well, the beach is not on the west, the beach is on the south.
yeah.
I get all confused. Because you look at, Mom, wait a minute, I thought the beach, the Pacific Ocean's on the west coast. Wait a minute, honey, you look at the map, we got a little curve out here, all of our beaches face south, right?
Right.
My God, I didn't figure it out until I was 25.
We're filming for 30 years.
Okay, so here we are. So let's get into the core of this. And we're going to take some of these, some of them we're going to go by quickly, some of them we're going to spend a little bit more time. These are very simple yes/no questions. Within the last 3 years, the death of an occupant of the property, is there, the question is, are you, seller, aware of, within the last 3 years, the death of the property? The statute says you must disclose deaths that have occurred within the last 3 years of the property. And I think we used this example when we went to the TDS a couple weeks ago. That's a simple one. Yes. Okay? Doesn't say anything other than that. We're going to talk a little bit, actually let's just deal with it now. What's the exception to that?
Natural cause?
Well, no, natural cause you can disclose. From a standpoint of the cause, you can't say unless asked. You can't say unless asked if the cause of the death was caused by the HIV/AIDS virus. So you can't say, you're actually breaking one of the anti-discriminatory codes. Yes, my brother Jim died of HIV. You cannot say that. You could say, yes, my brother Jim died of a heart attack in the back bedroom. Okay? Now, you got to remember, you got to go way back when the whole AIDS stuff was going on. There was a lot of hysteria, a lot of, prejudice and all the rest of the sort of stuff. We don't want to discriminate against folks' sexual orientation, and AIDS virus. So they literally passed a law that says you cannot disclose that unless asked. So if it's my listing and I put in here, yes, somebody died, the buyer in a subsequent asks, what did they die of? Well, in that case, if you know the answer, irrespective of what it is, you have to answer. Died of the HIV virus. Died of a heart attack. I don't really know. You don't really know? Well, yeah, I do know. He was murdered by his wife, but I don't want to say that. Well, you have to disclose. Okay, again, I used this example before. There was a terrible, I don't know if it was gang-related or what, but there was a terrible murder of a family. I think it was up here off of Collinswood. This was probably 20 years ago. I was just new in the business. And there was literally, I don't know who it was in the family, but multiple people were murdered in this house. One of the people in the house was like shot, and he's hanging out the second-story window. Terrible pictures of the newspaper and all the rest of that sort of stuff. That was 20 years ago. If I sold that house today, I'm disclosing that. Okay? We have a rental property. Terrible story. We have a rental property, and I think it's been more than 3 years now, probably 5, 6 years ago. One of the children of the tenant hung himself in the backyard from a tree. I'm disclosing that. Well, you don't have to disclose it. It was over 3 years ago. I'm telling you, I know about it. I'm disclosing it because in my mind, it's material. And I always use I've used this example a dozen times already. I move into the house. My neighbor comes over. Did Lance tell you? Tell me what? Because every neighborhood has this guy, right? What about little Johnny hung himself? Or, God, 20 years ago, the murder. Guy had Jim hanging out the window. What? I think that's significant. I think that's material. Let's get away from the funky ones. Okay? Grandma died of natural causes 7 years ago. You don't have to disclose that. Okay? All right, so there you go. An order from the government health official identifying the property as being contaminated by meth. Has it ever been a meth lab? No. People want to know that. I've had 2 rentals that have been deemed meth labs. Very expensive to clean up. So, had to do it.
Or
Release-
another thing they're having now is those ones that people use as grow houses.
Okay.
That's very common now.
There you go.
Yeah.
Gotta disclose it. Has anybody released any illegal controlled substances on or beneath the property? Pouring motor oil in the backyard. Property located adjacent to an industrial zone. Now that's a little bit easier to that's the kind of visual common sense deal, okay? Well, of course, I mean, look across the street, and you got the
Right.
Fontana train yard, and you got smokestacks, but again, yes it is. Now again, well, how close? And we're gonna kind of get to a good example within that. Industrial zone, manufacturing, okay. Airports, commercial airports, how close? I mean, I live in Canyon Crest. Would any of you say I live close to an airport? There's a plane that flies over my house at least twice a day from March Air Force Base.
You also have
Oh,
the other
yeah,
one over
6
there.
o'clock.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, am I close to March Air? I don't consider I'm probably at least 6 miles from March Air Force Base. But depending upon, matter of fact, national security secret. When something's going down, or at least when it was going down in Baghdad, Iraq, I knew about it the day before. Because they would fly out of March Air Force Base and they'd fly out and from midnight till
Yeah.
6 o'clock in the morning, vroom, vroom,
Yes.
vroom, right over top of my house. They never fly at night unless something was going down. Okay? There you go. So at any rate, you gotta put your hat on. You gotta understand that the word, like Matt just said, you're in an area that you don't necessarily know. I sold, same kind of story, true story. I sold my buddy, my childhood friend, we grew up in the same block, a house in Burbank. Do I know Burbank? I do. You guys know Burbank. Am I qualified to sell a house in the city of Burbank? My license says I am. So I went and sold him a house in Burbank. At the time, which is kind of funny, I have no idea what it's worth now, but it was, you guys are going to fall out of your chair, it was at $240,000. It was Burbank. Okay. It probably shot up to $1 million and then back down. But anyway, this was probably 15 years ago. I saw my house in Burbank. I did all sorts of things. I was a great agent and I was a great friend. I did everything right. I did a bunch of things I shouldn't have done. I used to be a termite inspector. This is my buddy. Skip. This house is 60 years old, bud. Let me put my coveralls on, crawl underneath that house for you. I'm going to check you. I'm doing that as a friend, but I'm also his licensed agent. Should I be underneath his house, crawling around with a flashlight poking on wood? Because we didn't trust? Of course not. Shouldn't be doing that. Ridiculous. So anyway, we closed escrow on this house. He's happy, I'm happy, everybody's happy. What do you do when you move into your new house? You have a housewarming party. What do you invite? You invite your best buddy and your realtor. We're over at his house a week after we closed escrow. We're in his backyard. Got myself a Miller Genuine Draft, hot dog. I hear this noise. I look up and I see a plane. I see landing gear. I can read the, stuff. I see people looking down at me making, and I'm not kidding you, this plane is directly over his house.
Oops.
Yeah.
Burbank, I
Yeah.
don't know if that's an international airport, but
Yeah.
Burbank Airport is over there. His house is over there. Flight path is right over his house.
Is that Bob Hope or is that a different airport?
It's Burbank Airport. I don't know, maybe they call it Bob Hope?
I think they might have.
Well, I don't know, whatever it is. All I know is I literally break out in sweat. And this is my best friend. Dude, please tell me you knew that the airport was right over there. Oh yeah, I knew all about it. I'm like, oh my God, I wouldn't have bought that house.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not exaggerating. I don't know when the landing gear goes up on a plane,
Yep.
but this landing gear was down. I mean, you could see like the writing on the bottom of the plane. You know?
Yep.
I'm like, holy
I think they're gonna
cow.
land on your roof.
Now, let's pretend that wasn't my buddy. Let's pretend that they didn't know that the airport was there. And let's pretend that every time we went and looked at the house, we just happened to be there at a time when there wasn't any planes flying.
then
Could
you
I
got a
have a,
problem.
could I have a problem on my hands?
Mhm.
This is why you hear brokers and owners and managers say all the time, if you're gonna go take that listing over there, you better know what's going on over there.
Mhm,
And that doesn't mean, oh, I think I'll go spend a day, I'll drive around. Really?
mhm,
I've been in this town for 27 years, I barely know half the stuff that's going on,
mhm.
right? Yeah, we have 2 lawsuits in the last 2 years, people buying houses in Marina Valley Ranch because of the whole rental restriction thing. And these people should know what's going on. So be careful. Okay, so we've got that going on. What do we got here? Nuisances created by industrial zones, property located within 1 mile of a formal federal state ordinance location. By the way, what is this? Formal federal or state ordinance location? What's an ordinance?
Arms Depot,
Bombs.
bombs.
Do we have bombs?
Mark.
Do we have bombs?
Oh, in March.
March.
Yeah.
Now, we don't know necessarily there's bombs, but if you drive down Heacock and you look to your right, you see all of these like hills with grass
Mhm.
over 'em.
Mhm,
What's in there?
yeah.
I don't know, but I think there might be bombs in there. Well, you gotta disclose that. Okay? You've got to disclose that, and you need to know whether or not you're selling a house in an area where there's a bomb. I mean, you better have your act together. Okay, so we've got that. Property is a condominium. Is it a condominium or PUD? You better know. Insurance claim affecting the property in 5 years. Is that important? That's in the contract, by the way. Especially water damage claims. You've got to disclose. Matters affecting title. I just filed bankruptcy. Huh? My sister put a lien. Huh? Well, the guy who did the patio put a Liz Pendants or a mechanics lien. Huh? Okay, well that all affects title. Alright, you gotta do that. Huh? You like that? Huh? Material
Schools
effects
them today.
not otherwise disclosed. Now here's the catch-all. We missed a question. Material effects and defects affecting the property not otherwise disclosed. You know, something funny. Can you bury a horse on your house, on your property? No.
No, no.
Go talk to Mike Boab.
Huh?
Home. He sells a house. Everything's fine. It was horse property. He sells a house. The guy comes out later. I got my tractor. I'm gonna move some stuff around.
Oh, wow.
You know what the heck's that? Pulls up old Mr. Ed comes out. You know, you can't do that. Your horse died. I don't even think you're supposed to bury your dog, to be honest with you. But
I don't think so.
if your horse dies, you are not supposed to dig a hole and bury him on a residential
Gotta
lot.
call the people.
You've got to call the people.
Yeah.
Call the dead horse people.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're putting all that stuff on there. So we got that covered. Disclose. Material. Repairs or alterations. Let's a little quicker. Alterations, now again, are we starting to sound familiar?
Mhm.
This is on the TDS. Alterations, modifications, remodeling, replacement materials on the property, including those resulting from home warranty claims. Have you done anything? A lot of times that should be a yes. Of course we have. We remodeled the kitchen, put on a new roof. We did something. There's nothing wrong with saying yes. Say yes. Matter of fact, when I see these and they all say no, I'm like, come on.
Mhm.
It's got to be a yes. Give me a break. Ongoing or recurring maintenance on the property. Example, drain, sewer clean out, tree or pest control service. Again, it's a little different question. Do you have an ongoing service? Yes, I have a pest control service.
Mhm.
Yes, I have a contract with Skunky Pumper. They come out and they pump my septic every 6 months. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? In theory, it's a good thing. It could be a bad thing. If they have to come out and pump it every 6 months because it's backing up, that's a bad thing. If they just come out to do it just as routine maintenance, that's a good thing, so you can disclose that. Any part of the property been painted in the last 12 months? That's an interesting question. Have you painted the house? Did you paint over lead-based paint? Or did you paint over lead-based paint? Is the property pre-1978? Any renovations? Why are they asking pre-1978?
That's a law change.
That's when the lead-based paint was banned. No more lead-based paint after that. What if your house was built, I mean, is it entirely possible that a house that was built in 1992 has lead-based paint on it somewhere? Sure it is. They went over, they grabbed a bucket out of Grandpa's garage. Oh, this looks pretty good. That mixed up all right. That was good. By the way, was the lead-based paint a good paint?
Mhm.
It was a great paint. Okay? But it had lead in it, which is fine, just don't eat it, right? That was the thing, don't eat the paint. Or if
We're
you're...
all okay, right?
Yeah, right, we made
Just
it.
don't eat it. Okay, so we're going to put that in there. And again, any other
Better than
explanations?
Spaghetti, okay.
Structural systems, what have we got here? Are you aware of defects? Again, does it sound familiar? Heating, air, plumbing, we had the same questions on the TDS. So again, you better make sure your questions jive. But there's a whole slew of things here. Whole slew of things here. Roof, well, septic. Debbie just sold a property that had a well and a septic. And there was kind of issues. Normally when you have a well or a septic or both, prepare yourself. You need to get certifications. Does the well work? Is the water potable? Does the septic leach line system work? Prepare yourself for that. Ask those questions. Especially the older the properties, and frankly the older the properties are the ones that have them. You don't have a lot of brand new properties that have wells anymore unless you're rural type stuff. The leasing of any of the following on or serving the property. Do you own the solar system on the roof or are you leasing it? That might be important to know. Do you own the water softener system or are you leasing it? Whose alarms are there? I see you have an ADT system. Do I own that motion detector up there? Or are they going to come take it if I don't pay? Is that important? Could be. Could be. So you got to know what you've got. Alternative septic systems are serving the property. There's something else going on. Disaster relief insurance. This is an interesting one. I don't think we've ever had this in any area that I'm aware of. But God forbid it ever happens. But is there any financial relief or assistance or insurance settlement that has anything to do with the property? God forbid at some point we have a natural disaster over here. FEMA comes in or somebody says, yeah, you qualify for X. And you've now been paid off for X. Buyer might want to know that. I didn't know that this area, well, whose house was, I think Janet's house got like wiped out, not wiped out, but got affected by a tornado or somebody in this office.
Thank you.
Janet, did your house get beat up a little bit by a tornado a few years ago?
Yeah.
That was you.
Can you imagine
Well,
that?
there you go. There you go. Can you imagine that?
Our house was fine, but they took the barbecue and slammed it across the way and then
Okay.
picked up the barbecue and threw it.
Well, and there was a couple other houses, I don't know if it was the same storm or related, that actually had a good chunk of their roof taken off. You don't think about that. You don't read about it.
Yeah, happened to our house.
25 years ago.
There you go.
Usually it was like,
There you go.
We're not in Kansas.
Not in Kansas anymore, Toto. Okay, so we disclosed that. Here's one of my favorites, water-related issues. Water intrusion. Any part of the physical structure of the property leaks, or any appliance, pipe, slab, roof, standing water, drainage, flooding, underground water, moisture, water-related soil settings, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so you got any water intrusion? Anything coming on? From the roof, from the outside, from a leak, from a slab, from a toilet, from a valve, from a shower. You want to know that. You have to disclose it. Here's the good one. Any problem with infestation of mold, mildew, fungus, spores, past or present? Past or present? I fixed it. Tell us more. I think mold, let me rephrase that. By the way, is mold covered in the TDS? One word. It's included in its lead-based paint, asbestos, radon gas, mold, on and on and on. It doesn't go, but I'll just give you an example from 2 days ago. Okay? Probably should turn off the tape, but what the heck. Office in Redlands. Our office, we have an employee. You know those little plastic mats that your chair sits on? What happens to those plastic mats after you sit on them for a year or so? They get cracks in them. What happens if you spill a cup of coffee on that mat? Moisture goes through the cracks onto the thing. Our beloved maintenance guy comes in. We have mold. It's not safe.
Evacuate.
You cannot work in here anymore. You have to get out. How are you feeling?
Oh my
How have you
gosh.
been feeling?
Wow.
I'm not kidding. This just happened 2 days ago. I think you better get out of here. You're going to get sick. Right. So,
Gosh.
I go over there. Looks like somebody spilled a cup of coffee on the mat. It leaked through the thing. Pull it back. Is that mold? I have no idea. Mold, mildew. It looks like some coffee that's been sitting there for a couple of weeks that's
Yeah.
kind of gotten a little funky.
Yeah.
what would we do before we were all worried that we were going to die of mold exposure? What would we do with that?
Dry it out and
We'd
clean it.
clean it up and dry it out. We'd go about our lives.
Yeah.
Today, the litigation behind Ed McMahon is the one who started this, by the way, and I'm not kidding. Johnny Carson, Ed McMahon. 25 years ago, Ed McMahon sued State Farm Insurance for a mold-related claim, indicating he had mold, and maybe he did. He had some mold, some spores. It's not the mold, it's the air spores you get in your lungs and it's hard to breathe. And if you're sensitive to that, anybody here have asthma? Okay, well if you have asthma, you could be sensitive to that.
I am.
Okay, you are sensitive to that. Okay, that's if you don't have asthma, you're not. Okay, but if you have, okay, hey, I'm with you. Having said that, if we didn't have mold and fungus and termites and all of those other things that eat other things, we would be up to our eyeballs in shit. We couldn't live because
Right.
that stuff's been around from the beginning of time.
Yeah.
And if you've got, let's in this room right now, if we have the air tested, somebody comes in and they take a jar and they seal it up and they take it to the lab, and they will come back and say, I don't know what the proper amount is, but let's just say for example, there are 4 parts per billion of the mold spore in the air in this room. 4 parts per billion.
Billion.
Per billion. Or maybe it's per million, I don't know. Okay, but there's 4 parts per something. Now we could all sit back and say, well that's too many, because the EPA says the acceptable level is 1 part per billion. And we're 3 times or 4 times elevated. What's the solution to that? The solution to getting less parts per billion in this room is if there is an active problem, get rid of the moisture, clean it up, and then, oh, by the way, which is
Air it
hard
out.
to do in this window, or in this room, let's open a window.
Yeah.
Because by the way,
Fresh air.
how many parts per billion of that same mold spore are outside?
Probably more.
Well, at least 1.
Yep.
The same mold spores that we're breathing here, they're also outside. Because that's what, when the trees, the leaves fall off, something's got to eat that stuff. You know? Something's got to, I mean, that's how the whole thing works. Having said that, mold scares the bejesus out of me. So if you're selling a property, or you're involved in any way, shape, or form, and you feel you have a property with mold, which by the way, all mold is not created equal.
Right.
You've got the mildew in the corner of the shower, which on occasion we all might have experienced. Well, what do? You clean it up. It's the sticky, stacky borealis, the black mold of death. Which, by the way, you can't, I don't know. You got to take it, you send it over to a lab. The chances that you've got the bad mold are very, very slim. And by the way, if you do have the bad mold, yeah, it's bad news bears. You don't want to be in a room with a lot of that stuff. If you have asthma, you're really going to feel it. If you don't, you're going to feel it. So anyway, be careful with mold. Mold scares me. Mold is what asbestos used to be. For those of you that have been doing this for a long time, when I first got into the business, lead-based paint and asbestos. Ooh. Now, frankly, we don't really, we don't want to hear too much about that. Mold scares the heck out of me. Yeah, sure.
Section 8 inspection, I see discoloration.
Yeah,
on the
discoloration.
wall. Yeah, yeah.
Discoloration. Did you catch that? By the way, let's let some of my friends at Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are as well. Federally regulated, federally chartered, frankly now owned by us. On their foreclosures, you're not allowed to use. And by the way, it sounds like I'm kind of bagging on them a little bit. I'm not. If I, as a broker, say I opened up the cupboard behind the sink and I found mold, they call me up. They slap my hand and say, don't you ever send us an email that says the M word in it again.
Yeah.
Now, for a couple, number one, they're trying to do loss mitigation. You saw discoloration under the sink. Now, some of us might say, wait a minute, we're not disclosing. That sounds like we're trying to conceal. Well, you know, maybe they are. Okay? But this is the real point. We are not qualified to call that mold.
Right.
Okay? I don't know what it is. It's discoloration. I mean, what we saw on the carpet the other day was not mold. It was funky carpet or funky coffee. Okay, coffee. Now, I guess we could have had it tested. They would have said, yeah, there's some mold spores, number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or whatever happened to be. Okay, fine. You clean it up, you go about your lives. Okay, be careful with mold. Mold scares me. It scares me. So if you want to get into a situation like that, and again, to be cautious, use Shirley's description. I have a discoloration issue, I don't know what it is, let's hire a
I
professional.
suggest.
Which, by the way,
yeah.
who the heck do you hire to go check it out? It's a tough one.
Mm.
How many licensed mold companies are there out there?
Zero.
Ah, good answer. If we search the internet, shall we? I love
Find
mold.
a ton of them that claim.
Mold,
Anything in the news about that now?
Inspector.
Going right
mold, how about mold inspection?
There you go.
Okay, we got
It's a
three.
highly trained,
Certified.
certified.
Here we go. Trusted, certified, inspections. How much do mold inspections cost? Let's go with the topic. We're gonna cost these people $1. So we clicked on their link. Mold inspections, testing by certified Los Angeles mold inspectors. What does that mean?
What is certified?
Who regulates our real estate license?
DRB?
California Department of Real Estate, which actually is now the California Bureau of Real Estate. Government
They
agency.
did change.
We have standards, we have practices, if we don't do it right, you have a government agency to go after us. If you hire a contractor to replace your roof and the roof goes bad, who do you go to? You go
State
to the
Division
state
of
contractor
Contractors.
licensing board, who regulates that roofing contractor, which is why you use a licensed contractor, not somebody else, and then there's some sanction. If our termite inspector makes a mistake, we go to the Structural Pest Control Board, state of California, they govern them. If this mold inspector does something wrong, who do we go to? Oh, well, it looks like we go to the certified Los Angeles mold inspectors. Who the heck is that?
No such animal.
Nobody. You want to get certified as a mold inspector? How about this? I'm gonna be a mold inspector. To be a mold, I bet it comes up. Oh, I'm shocked.
Be certified.
Inhale
I want,
my
well, I'm
house.
gonna do it anyway. Inspector. I want to be a mold inspector. Certified mold testing,
Testing.
local mold inspections. Any one of these guys are gonna.
Professional inspection training.
Ah, where's that? Ah,
Down
down at the bottom. Training FAQs. Anyway, you get the idea. So, don't just, oh, by the way, Service Master, we've all heard of Service Master, they got commercials all over the place.
Mhm.
What are their disaster relief specialists, right?
Mhm.
When your house burns down, who do you call? You call Service Master.
Mhm.
When you have a flood, who do you call? You call Service Master.
Mhm.
You know how much money they charge you
Mhm.
for a flood?
Yeah.
A lot. And the insurance companies pay. Okay, pets. Pets in the property. Why do we want to know if there's pets in the property? Because pets pee in the property.
Pee.
Damage your carpet.
Damage the carpet.
Fleas.
I'm allergic. Do you have livestock? Do we have problems with livestock? Wildlife. Insects. Pests. I don't know about you, but I can't wait for the June bugs. I don't know what it is about my house. My house is a hangout for June bugs.
Is that those big ones?
Nah, those little orange little bugs, little
Okay.
beetle bugs.
Little hard.
I think
They're
my
not
house.
Come out in June anymore.
Well, they'll be out tomorrow. I haven't seen them yet, but when they show up, man,
They come in force.
they come in force. They love my house.
August this year.
Okay, past, present odors, urine, feces. What happens if your dog pisses on your carpet? I don't care how hard you try.
It's
Wah.
down into the
It's
county.
there. Past, present treatment, eradication for pest odors, repair damage in any of the dog area. Disclose, disclose, disclose. Okay. Boundaries. Be careful with boundaries. 99% of the properties that we will sell in our real estate career are probably going to be single-family residential lots with very defined lots. Should never cause you any problems. Okay? They can, but those are not the type of things that you'll normally get in trouble over. Occasionally, you'll sell a house in a residential neighborhood, and you'll find out later that, 15 years ago, the neighbor moved the fence over 1 foot, and something happened, and yada yada yada. That's not really the big problems. These are properties where you're selling a 3-acre parcel that's up in the corner of Box Springs or something like that. Or well, you see that rock up there with the little white dot on it, that's the corner, and that tree over there with the branch that goes that way, that's the other corner. You gotta be careful with that, okay? Now, your seller can say what they want to say. We say, go get your property surveyed. And frankly, what I recommend, if you have a question with that, is call the title company. The title company will, for a fee, refer you to a survey company, because a lot of times they work hand in hand surveying properties. Okay? I've had to do that twice, and both times it was a problem. Ken Hawkins in this office 10, 12 years ago sold a house, and everything looked good. The buyer buys the house, and it was a weird house, and it was like a 4 or 5 acre lot, and the neighbor had a 4 or 5 acre lot. When we find out half of the barn was built on the wrong side of the property line. After the fact,
Tear it down.
the buyer wanted to get something else built and decided, let me just survey to see where I'm. Shoot.
Oh, wow.
And so it wasn't a cheapo little barn, it was a nice barn. Don't ask me how it got done and how permits got done, they just did it. Big problem. So make sure you're good with that. Landscaping, pool spa, or any of your trees. This hasn't been in the news much lately, but a few years ago, all the pine trees were dying. Remember those beetles were getting?
Yeah.
Okay.
Up north.
Again, for most of the properties we're selling, this isn't a big deal. Let's suppose we're selling a very, very nice palatial property with many, many acres, and they've got tens of thousands of dollars worth of beautiful trees that I know are dying. But they're not dead yet. So let's sell. Because the house is worth more with these beautiful trees than it is without it. Right? Well, you got to disclose that. So sometimes you got to take this out of your box and think a little bit more than what we're normally selling. Orientation of sprinklers on the bar. Are they automatic? Are they manual? You know, the trees or the plants. And operational pool heater. Well, that's kind of important. Does the spa heater work? Past or present defects or leaks, pools and sprinklers, pool spa. I don't know why they put the sprinklers in with the pool and spa, but does everything work? Does the waterfall work? Does the pond work? Does the drainage work? Does all that stuff work? Disclose, disclose, disclose. Very, very important. Title and ownership. Do you own the house? Any legal claims? Are you leasing the property? Okay. Can you sell a house that has a tenant in it with a 1-year lease?
But the lease goes
You
with the house.
Lease goes with the house. Lease goes with the house. You absolutely can do that. Lease goes with the house. Got to make sure you understand that. Past, present, pending, threatened lawsuits, settlements, mediations. Husband and wife, divorces, ugly things going on. Is everything resolved? Private transfer fees. We don't. This is something you guys. We have never had to experience it. This is something that could potentially come into our lives because it's being fought right now by the California Association of Realtors on our behalf to prohibit private transfer fees. And what this would be, a developer comes in. Think about how cool this is. We own a lot. We're going to call it Pioneer Limited Liability Corporation. We all own it together, and we're going to build 100 houses on it. And what we do is we're going to sell them. We're going to sell all 100 houses. But what we do is we put in the governing documents a deed restriction on every single one of those houses that we sell that says, by the way, there's a private transfer fee that goes with the property. And just so you know. So we sell the house to the first buyer. And you say, oh, great, the private transfer fee. Oh, whatever, we're going to pay $200,000 for it, no big deal. Now 3 years later, we go to sell the house. They're going through the documents, and the escrow and the agent say, oh, by the way, there's a private transfer. Did you realize that you had bought a house that has a private transfer fee on it? They're like, I remember them saying something about that. Well, you know what? Well, you know it's $10,000. What do you mean?
Wow.
Oh yeah, every time that property is sold, forever, the seller or the buyer or somebody in that transaction has to pay the private transfer fee. And who do they pay it to? They pay it to the original builder. How cool would that be? You sell the house, and then what you do is you hope that that house gets resold and resold and resold, and every time they resell, you get a check in the mail. Is that sweet?
That's sweet.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, well that's been happening through different parts of the state of California, and nobody's really figured it out. And now people are selling my house and say, well, and again, no excuse, read the documents. I mean, if you would have read the documents, you would have figured it out. But anyway, there's now a move to prohibit any future private transfer fees to be. So a builder could not come to, we have still, believe it or not guys, we still have a lot of land in the Inland Empire that we can develop. Market starts going back. We will be back with selling new houses all over again. So we got to be aware of whether that's in there. Anything triggered at sale, private parties, neighborhood. Again, we spent a lot of time talking about neighborhoods. This is the same thing we just discussed. Are there a problem? Are there... this is a good one. My buddy puts on the Coachella Valley Music Festival and the Stagecoach Music Festival down right on the border of La Quinta and India. You may have heard about it or familiar with it. This is a big event. This event goes on for 3 weekends in a row, and it's not Saturday, Sunday. It's a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, followed by a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, followed by a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It takes them about 3 weeks to set up. So 3 weeks before that, you've got equipment in there, and then it takes them about 2 weeks to break down. So for basically 2 months out of the year, from about the middle of March through the middle of May, if you live by the Empire Polo Field, you're going to have heavy equipment. And for at least 12 days during that month, you better like rock and roll and country, baby. Because you're going to be hearing rock and roll and country, and you better like traffic. And you better be okay with, hey honey, I gotta go get a quart of milk. Today,
I'll be back in an hour.
yeah, what normally is a 4-minute trip could take you 2 hours. Or you might not even be able to get there.
Wow.
Is that a big deal?
Mhm.
Had you better disclose that? That's what this is talking about. It's not just the punk rock band across the street that's a nuisance, or the gang members selling drugs. It's those sort of things. So all of that stuff needs to be disclosed. So important. Governmental stuff. Does the city require inspections? Does everything? Does it comply to code? Or is there rent control? Is there proposed new assessments? Has the city been talking about floating a new bond, special assessment district? On and on and on and on. I'm not going to go through every one of those. Other is other. Anything else you know? I will give you this example. I've talked about this in other classes. Debbie's my seller. I convinced Debbie, hey, we got to get a termite report. We're going to offer a termite. She says, okay, fine. We get a termite report by a company that I recommended. Oh God, I recommended. Had good use with them. Here's 3 companies to pick one, but I like ABC Company. She picks ABC Company. She gets the report. It says fumigate. $1,500. Ah. Give me a second opinion. Okay, XYZ company comes back and says, oh, well, yeah, you got to fumigate, and our price for fumigation is $1,600. Oh, and by the way, we found some other stuff that the first guy didn't find. They also have subterranean termites, and that's going to be $600. So, report 2, which of course we were trying to get a better deal, is over $2,000. Report 1 is $1,500. Who gets? Is that a material known fact?
Mhm.
Who gets copies of those reports?
Both.
All the buyers. Need both of them. So your seller cannot make the decision, okay, well thanks for getting me 2 estimates, Lance, but we'll just go with this one. Because this one is $1,500 and it's only a fumigation. The other one found something else. This is, no.
So they could go ahead and fumigate and then still just give the buyer that other inspection that said, we recommend.
Gotta give them both.
That's
gotta give 'em both.
okay.
Yeah, you have a known material. Now, there's a total different argument. Is the first termite company responsible for what they missed? Let's not get into that right now.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, I as the agent, Debbie as the seller, now have knowledge of, we have 2 different reports with different findings at different prices. But let's suppose they weren't. Let's just suppose they both found the same thing. One was $1,500, one was $2,000. You still got to give both reports to the buyer. Now, of course, Debbie wants to use ABC Company for $1,500, and the buyer wants to use Orkin, and they're $3,000 because Orkin's got the name.
Right.
Orkin's got the brand name. We'll use them. So you got to disclose. You got to give them all. Okay, we got additional comments, seller signs, and a report. Okay, so there is our SPQ. Let's go back to our checklist. Natural hazard disclosure. Okay, I will pull up the natural hazard disclosure form in WinForms, or I keep calling it WinForms. I'm going to call that forever. However, we never use this. Never. Did I say never? We never use this. This is the form that is provided to us by who? The natural hazard disclosure companies. We pay the $50, we pay the $100, whatever we pay, correct? Normally the seller pays, and the form itself has all of these questions answered, right? We never use this form. The seller does not. I want to save $50, So I'm gonna, no, I don't think it's an emergency, no, we don't do that. We never use this form. So when you see on our mandatory forms list, a natural hazard disclosure report, which basically the one thing we need to get signed is that one pager. Isn't it a fire zone, a high fire zone, an earthquake zone?
All the risks.
The risk, exactly. That is the report that is provided for by the company. Checks, boxes are already checked, we just sign. That defers and deflects the responsibility for the correct answers over to the company, and they have the reports, they know. I don't think those have ever been challenged. So, just so you know, if you're new and you see this on the checklist, here it is, the Natural Hazard Disclosure Report. And if you go to CAR, I really wish CAR would just take this out. I don't know why, where did it go? Here it is. This form should not be in there, because there's agents out there that there's agents in this office that have used this. They filled it out. I don't know where they got the answers. Even if you have the report and you do the same thing that's on the report and you have them sign this, don't do that. Don't do that at all. So, no, just for training purposes, what this is it's exactly what the title says. We are disclosing known natural hazards, and basically what we need to disclose are special flood hazard area. That is a legal description. That just isn't something that we just came up with. Type, zone A or B. Okay? An area of potential flooding. Okay, that is a legal word. Okay? Yes or no. Okay? A very high fire hazard severity zone. That is a legal, as defined pursuant to section yada 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 of government code. These are legal issues, which, by the way, and this is just me off the top of my head, an area of potential flooding. Is the city of Paris in an area of potential flooding? Have you been to Lake Paris lately?
Yeah.
The lake is down by a third because they're worried that the dam was going to fail. Flood out of Lake Paris. Have you been to East Moreno Valley at any time when we've had some of those funky rains and storms? You know, the drainage is better today than it was 20 years ago, but it still isn't perfect. We have one of our rentals with 2 feet of mud in the front yard and 6 inches of muddy water inside the house within the last 6-8 months. Things happen. So anyway, we do not use this form. We let the Natural Hazard Disclosure Company provide that for us. Okay, so that's the disclosure, and then that's the approval is the form that I just showed you. The lead-based paint disclosure. We got that one. So let's do it. What is that? The federal? What's it say? Federal? What's that form called?
Right there, right there. One down.
Where is it?
It's highlighted.
Highlighted.
Good,
Oh,
lead-based paint.
Oh, I wasn't looking at the highlight. Thank you, sir. Okay. Again, a form known and loved by all. By the way, I know there's different trains of thought about whether we need to use this on properties built after '78. Use it on everything. I don't care if the house was built 2010. Use it on everything. Just makes me sleep better. Doesn't hurt anything.
Double click.
And it's thinking about it. Come on, baby. Okay, while we're waiting for this to pull up, this is a very standard form. It's used all the time. It's very simple. Seller, buyer, agents are signing. When was the property built? To your knowledge, is there any lead-based paint? It's possible that there could be lead-based paint on a property that is built after 1978. Because, where's the list of all my forms at? Do I dare go back? We did this last time, I didn't do it right. How do I get
You
this?
see on the sides where it says all forms are my forms?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you click the
My forms, it
arrows.
should be over here now? Now should it be here? There it is.
Here it is.
I'll open the darn thing. There we go.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I just kind of got hung up a little bit. Okay, so here we are. We've got our property. Look, oh, by the way, this. You can use these on your residential month leases. For the most part, we're going to be using our California Residential Purchase Agreement. Date, address, buyer sign, seller sign, yada, yada, yada. Warnings, giving you a statement, which by the way, this is also in the lead-based paint booklet, the hazard booklet, talks about all sorts of stuff like that. Basically says, if you've got a property built prior to 1978, it's got lead-based paint. Okay, that's fine. You just gotta be careful, don't eat it, remediate it. You make sure it's concealed or painted over. If it's flaking, that's a problem. You gotta get that removed. You don't want to go up there. We talk about little babies and stuff being affected. The problem with lead-based paint is some people our age, if we were to eat a gallon of lead-based paint, probably would be fine. Little babies, their brains are developing. You know, the old story is they're at the windowsill at grandma's house and they're looking out, like chewing the windowsill. Well, the windowsill is loaded with lead-based paint, and the theory is overexposure to that causes developmental problems with babies. Older people doesn't matter, but let's just pretend we're not so much older, and now we're restoring our pre-1920 house, and we're up there with the sander, and we're sanding the eaves, and now we're breathing in all of that stuff. It's not good for you. Okay, so as much as I kind of poo-pooed the mold, well, it's pretty much a proven deal here. Lead's not good for you. So anyway, here's all our warnings. This is why it's not good for you. This is why you want to stay away from it. EPA has all sorts of regulations on it. And pretty simple question. I have no knowledge of lead-based paint and or lead-based paint hazards in the house other than the following. I have no reports or records pertaining to lead-based paint other than the following. If you have the information, you disclose it. Very, very simple. Seller signs, basically certifying that they either have knowledge or they don't. You sign. Now again, the listing agent has informed seller or landlord of the seller or landlord's obligations and is aware of the agent's responsibility to ensure compliance. I reviewed the information, certified to the best of my knowledge the information is correct. We provided their information. We believe they've answered honestly. Okay. We provided them the information. The house was built in the 50s. It looks like the paint's original. Seller's lying. Well, it was all repainted. All of it was remediated. It's no good. We got to put that on our Avid. Now, we don't know for a fact. We believe that this property may contain hazardous lead-based paint. Recommend further inspection. Check it out. So we're going to sign here. The buyer signs here. Now, all the buyer is doing is they're just acknowledging that they've received copies of information. Okay? That's all they're doing. Now, they do also say buyer waives the right to conduct a risk assessment or inspection. That needs to be checked. Otherwise, the buyer acknowledges the right for 10 days. If they can go out and have further inspection. Have somebody go out and take a look at it and tell, oh yeah, you've got lead-based paint. Again, should not be a deal killer. Don't misunderstand me. We rented houses over at March Air Force Base for 15 years. My friends, people living in them right now. Those houses were built in 1909 or 1936. I don't remember what, but they're old. And I gotta tell you, those houses have asbestos in them. They have lead-based paint all over the place. They're not unsafe. The asbestos is contained and isolated, and as long as it's not exposed, you're fine. The lead-based paint is not chipping and peeling and all the rest of that sort of stuff. But exterior, if you got up there with a chisel and you started chipping away the paint on the eave and you ate it, you're eating lead-based paint. So, again, not illegal to sell a house with lead-based paint. You just got to disclose it. And then again, the cooperating agent signs here. So, pretty straightforward with the lead-based paint form. I say use them on all of your houses, no matter of the age. Okay. Water heater smoke detector statement. Pretty straightforward stuff, guys. This is required on all of our transactions. They're combined now, aren't they? They got them both together? Water heater smoke detector statement. Open sesame. Are you going to open this time or not? Maybe I got to go here. There we go. Thank you very much. Okay, there used to be 2 forms. Now they've got it on 1. Thank you. Appreciate that. And come on. Okay, so here we go. Water heater and smoke detector statement of compliance. They've lumped them together. Here's our water heater. State law. California law requires that all new or replacement hot water heaters and existing residential hot water heaters are braced, anchored, and strapped to resist falling or horizontal displacement due to earthquake. Okay? So, it's gotta be done. Okay? It also has to be done properly. Okay? The local requirements. You just can't go up there with a nail and a ribbon and stab it. It's gotta be done properly. That is the law. This cannot be waived. But I don't care. Oh, cool. No. Got to be done. Has to be done. So, anyway, that has to be done. That's your water heater. Very simple. And by the way, the seller represents the property as of the close of escrow. Now again, this is will be. This is another thing. This kind of gets back to what we talked about earlier. The dishwasher's missing. This just says as of close of escrow, it will be in compliance. Okay, so if you go out there, it doesn't have, well, you've got to get it done before close of escrow. That's fine. Okay, anchorage trap, so on and so forth. So you've got your water heater. Smoke detector is basically the same thing. California law requires that every single family dwelling and factory-built house sold on or after 1986, January 1, must have an operable smoke detector, approved and listed by the State Fire Marshal, installed in accordance with State Fire Marshal's regulations, yada, yada, yada. All used manufactured mobile homes, yada, 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 have an operable smoking detector in each sleeping room. Okay? Local requirements. Some local ones enforce more stringent requirements. I don't know what your local deal is. Transfer it's got to comply. Exceptions. Generally, a written statement of smoke detector compliance is not required for transactions for which the seller is exempt from providing the transfer disclosure statement. They're basically talking about foreclosures. Banks do them anyway. Put your smoke detectors in. Okay? The general rule for us is one in each bedroom, one in the living area. You're safe. You may hear someone say, no, you only have to have one for the entire house. Put one in each bedroom, one in the living area. Okay? Just be safer that way. Normally, kind of the standard practice these days is just, pop them right above the door. On the wall, not necessarily on the ceiling. On the ceiling is fine. But these days, it appears as though that seems to be what people are doing. The contractors seem to be doing it, seems to work. Cannot waive this. Has to be done. All right? And they're cheap. Believe me, if you haven't paid for these yet in your career, you will. Okay? Carbon monoxide, same thing. I'm not going to pull up the carbon monoxide form. It's the same thing as the smoke detector form. Now we have to have carbon monoxide detectors. I'm still a little bit confused, to be honest with you, whether the combination are acceptable.
Right.
It seemed to make sense. We were using them, and then I saw a report that says you should not have a combination smoke detector carbon monoxide. You need to have two separate ones. I can't remember exactly what the logic was on why. But some of them have just said, well, smoke detectors should be high, carbon monoxide detectors should be low.
Right.
Honestly, I need more clarification on it. I've been asking for clarification on that for a while, and I still haven't satisfied myself, so I'm very confused. So more to follow on that. Statewide buyer and seller's advisory. We're going to go through this one, but we're going to do this quickly. How many pages is this?
Okay,
It's,
10 or 11.
it's a whopper.
11. It's a new one, it's 11 pages now.
It's 10 or 11, yeah.
It's a biggie. It's so much fun. But this is another one of those where it just really is a...
Right there. Up.
Yep.
It's already in your...
Oh, you know, is that what that means? When it's blue, that means it's in my forms?
Yep.
Maybe that's why it didn't pop up last time. Because it was already in there. See, I learned something. There we go.
Sure thing, Lance.
Okay. Now, there's a lot of repetition on this form. As a matter of fact, this will be, I think, our last form. Well, maybe we'll get a couple more. Because again, this is 10 or 11 pages now. It was 10, and it's a lot. But we're going to buzz through this because so much of this is so repetitive to what we've already discussed. Okay. So again, buyer's rights and duty. You have a right and a duty to check the condition for improvements, yada, 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 yada. Strongly advised to investigate. That's why I do love this form, because it puts in the big bold letters. Investigate the condition of property. And also, make sure it's suitable for what you want to do with it.
Yeah.
The condition's perfect, but you wanted to do this with it, and then you discovered you can't do this with it because the city doesn't allow you to breed dogs. Well, it was a big lot. It was perfect. Well, I know, but the city said you wanted to breed dogs. Now, how would you like to be the real estate agent who spent a year walking around with that buyer, knowing that the property that they wanted to buy was specifically so that they could live in it and do dog breeding, and you showed them that property and you said, here it is,
This is it.
this is it. Only to find out you never checked with the city, or you never asked, or maybe the seller improv. That'd be the type of thing. Well, the other guy was breeding dogs here.
Well,
Is that logical? I'm the agent.
yeah.
Shoot.
One would assume.
One would assume, well, they've been doing it illegally for ever, or they were doing it, the ordinance changed, they were grandfathered in,
Uh-huh.
and now you can't. You better know where you're selling. Okay, so we got all that good stuff going on here. Make sure you know what you're doing, where you're selling. Broker, we have duties? Yes, we do. It says right here. Actually, the first thing it says is we do not have expertise in all areas. So be careful. I talked about my general contracting license. I used to have a termite inspection license when I was 19 years old. I got certified branch 1 and branch 2 termite and pest control. Now I don't have it anymore, but I know, when I told you a little story about the little kick-out hole, did I tell that like I had been there before? I know termites. I have knowledge. That's not necessarily a good thing. Honestly, it is a good thing. You know, by the way, just along those lines, I think in the last class or something, I said something about I went and got a tax preparer license. I was 20 years old. That was probably wasn't so smart. The more knowledge you have, the better. Just be careful. If you put your, hey, I used to do this and I used to do that, that's it. That's not what I'm here for.
I have to interject something.
Yes.
That reminds me, there was a commercial, I don't know if you saw it about 2 months ago during tax season, but it was really funny.
Oh,
There
yeah.
was this guy who was like the plumber, and this
Oh,
guy comes in and he says,
yes,
wait a
yeah.
minute, you did my taxes, and like
Yeah,
the place down the street. He goes, oh yeah, I do that on Saturdays and Sundays.
Yeah.
And
There
you're
you go.
thinking, oh, that's not
Yep,
good.
and he sells real estate on Tuesday evenings.
There you go.
That's right.
And he's got a termite inspector
That's
license on
right.
Sundays.
Amen. Amen. Anyway, having said that, you guys really should educate yourself. The more you know on this stuff, if you can become an expert at termites and septics. I was just thinking how nice it is. I don't have a license. I'm a general contractor. I guess I could do septics. I know a lot about septic systems. And I am not afraid to tell my buyers and sellers what the heck's going on. Okay? However, I do it in such a way that they understand this is where we're at. But we still got these professionals over here. It makes me look like I know what the hell I'm doing. What's I don't know. I never saw it. It was a septic. I don't know about septic. What about the well? The well. The termite problem. Roof. Okay? You lose the confidence, right? You lose your confidence of your clients very, very quickly. So the more transactions, the more experience, the more you get in the belt, the better you are. Okay, let's go through our responsibilities. Okay, again, we're not experts in everything. Get out of jail. Get out of jail free card. For most sales of residential properties with no more than 4 units, the brokers have a duty to make reasonable, competent digital inspections, AVID, right, and disclose material facts. Many defects and conditions may not be discoverable. It's by the law. Can't see it. I don't know. May not be discoverable. Many broker may give a referral to another professional. Brokers do not guarantee that person's performance. I mean, that's nice, but we get sued for that stuff all the time, right? Make sure you select who you want. This is not the only place where this shows up. You know, let's suppose we all love summer. Hey, you should use Summer Town and Country Escrow. We made it what we felt is a legitimate referral to a quality individual who's going to do escrow. But you can choose whoever you want. If you don't want to use Summer, who do you want to use? Choose whoever you want. But we got to be careful. You got it. That's where we get in trouble. Any written agreement between the broker and either buyer or seller or both establishes the rights and responsibility of those parties. What's the contract say? What's the agency disclosure statement say? Okay, so here we go. Inspections. Are we ready? Buyer and sellers are advised that they have the right to do inspections. I'm not going to go through it. Inspect the property. Okay, and that's a lot of different inspections. Square footage, lot size, boundary surveys. Again, we talked about that. This is 2 hours. can tell you stories about houses that I thought were 2,000 square feet, but were actually 1,800 square feet. The buyer bought a bigger house, and they were pissed. What? It's 2,000 square feet. I know the MLS at 1,800. You should be happy. It's going to cost me more to heat and cool this house. It's going to cost me more for carpeting and painting.
And the wife has to clean that.
And now it's going to cost me more to clean. You're damned if you, I mean, it's either way. So you check all that stuff out, lot size, boundaries, soil and geologic conditions. We don't have a lot of those. I've had 3 opportunities, opportunities if you will, where I had to get geologic conditions. Be careful with this. Don't let your buyers run roughshod on you, okay? Yeah, but if your buyers can, a house in Paris, oh God, long time ago, 10, 12 years ago. There's a lot of clay, decomposed granite here. But the farther down you get in Paris, it's more of a clay-based soil down there. So the backyard is no grass, lots of rain, and then it dried out. It'll look like, those pictures of the desert where it's all just like cracked and like little things, and there's like just like deep cracks. So the buyer's like, well, what's this, man? We've got soil and geological problems. You don't. You had a lot of backyard got flooded and it dried out, and it's just, get a rototiller, clean it up. You know how much that by the way, this is a track house, by the way. Track house. There was no settling cracks or anything anywhere in this property, anywhere. You know how much it costs to have a geologist come out and drill core samples to test the soil?
A lot.
A lot.
Yeah.
5 G's just to have the stuff drilled, and then if you got the report, they don't talk about correction.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, having said that, let me give you a reverse. Who's familiar with Hidden Springs? You been up to Hidden Springs recently? Well, there's a street, was it cross
Pebble Beach?
Pebble Beach? To this day, you can go down to Pebble Beach, and you're like, well, that's kind of weird. There's a couple houses missing at the end of this cul-de-sac. Well, guess what? They built them, and they
Sinking.
sank. Builder came in, bought them out. They'll never build houses there ever again. Okay. So in that particular case, if someone just would have poo-pooed that geological, they would have been.
I have Manny, the agent prospect here.
Oh, he's a little bit early. If you want to introduce him to Ingrid for a few minutes and give him a cup of coffee or something,
Okay.
then you can put him in the conference room at the end, and I'll be there in 8 minutes.
Sounds good.
Okay, cool. So be careful with that. Even though the chances of having a problem with a traditional track home is very, very slim. But, I mean, there's evidence. Janet, who else remembers that other than Janet? Janet, we've been doing this way too long.
I know.
Okay.
Mexico, put
There
in the
you go,
yard and
baby.
let's go.
But that is, and so if you go up to Hidden Springs and it's Pebble Beach, and it is Pebble Beach, and you go
Pebble
and
something.
and there you go. Yeah. What's up with that?
Wow.
Why do I buy that lot? I want to build that.
Yeah.
No, you don't. Okay. Geologic hazards. Earthquakes. You live in California, baby. You're going to have earthquakes. Environmental hazards. What do we got? And it's not just my silly example of someone changing their motor oil and pouring it in the backyard. It could be other stuff. Radon gas, asbestos, electromagnetic fields. You sell houses underneath the power lines.
Yeah.
That's a big thing.
It is a big thing. I sold a bunch of them right off the kitchen. San Lupe, I sold 6 houses on San Lupe. You look out the back window in the kids' room, you look up, and man, you feel like you can almost grab those wires. And they're not just the little wires, they're the big high-tension ones. They buzz. Bzzz. Okay? Environmental hazards. Lead-based paint. Formaldehyde. Okay? A lot of formaldehyde. I go into my motorhome, I flip down the visor on my motorhome, it says, you are going to die. This entire motorhome has been built with formaldehyde. Don't spend too much time in here.
You can smell it in the press wood. They don't use it anymore, but some in the press wood that they were using in the 80s.
There you go, the glue or whatever.
The glue,
Right.
yeah. I used to pass out. So yeah.
Yeah, but you were sniffing it on purpose though.
No.
Was that at work or
That was in the 70s, Lance.
Oh.
80s I was trying to avoid it.
Hey, Janet's got some stories, girl. If you guys haven't taken Janet out for a drink or for dinner, you're missing something because this girl's got some stories. Okay, we got mold. We already talked about mold. We already talked about water intrusion. Are we starting to become redundant in these
Yeah.
forms? Water intrusion. We already talked about water intrusion. Now, we haven't specifically talked about septic, but let's face it, if you have a property that's on septic, this is a good time to spend a little more time talking about septic, okay? Now, of course, if you don't worry about it. Same thing with wells and water systems. There's a whole, who I know Debbie just did it, who has never sold a house with a well or a septic yet?
Oh, with the septic, yes.
Okay, so we've all sold houses with well, okay. And then,
So,
okay. But when you get to your first one, if you haven't done it, come see me. Do not go into these things blind. Honestly, they're not that complicated. But you need to know what to expect, and more importantly, you need to know what to prep your buyer and or seller to expect. So don't wing it. I've already made the mistakes. Don't make the same mistakes I made. Wood destroying pests, that's our, everyone knows that that's a termite report, right?
Yeah.
I had an agent, we did this class 6 months ago, and didn't realize that was a termite report. Which I get it, why don't they just call it a termite report? Well, because wood destroying pests are not
Just
exclusive to termites.
Right.
That mold that we were talking, if you have mold or fungus on your patio cover left long enough, that turns into a fungus or an organism. It's alive, and it's going to eat the wood, and you got to deal with that. You got to treat it with copper naphthalate. You got to remove the wood. You got to do whatever. Easements, access encroachments. We could go all day about that. Is there an easement? Wait a minute. How does John get to his house? Because it looks like he has to drive across the northeast corner of our property. He does. Well, I don't want to do that anymore. Tough. He has easement and he has an access, or there's an encroachment, whatever it happens to be. You know, the old flag lot thing. Remember the flag lot when we took a real estate exam?
Right.
So you got to know about that. Earthquake faults. Is the city of Marina Valley in an earthquake fault zone? Careful. Trick question. No, it's not.
No, we're on a plate.
Yeah. Well, you know where San Andreas is, though, right? Right
San
there, baby.
Bernardino.
By my house.
It's a long walk from here. It's the San Andreas Fault is within 10 miles of here.
they're by San Bernardino.
Yeah, it runs
Yeah,
right through
that's
San
what I
Mateo
thought, San
Canyon.
Bernardino. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, but we are not. The city of Marina Valley is not in a earthquake fault zone. You know why? Because they haven't done the maps yet. These maps that they're talking about, I thought it said maps. Does it say map? Here we go. Mapping. It's not done. I've been talking about it since I've been in the business. The maps aren't done. But it doesn't matter because everyone knows it's California, it's an earthquake zone. So we kind of accept that. Okay? Fire hazards. Be careful. It may not look like it's a fire hazard, but it is. Depending on where you're at, depending on how close you are to Box Springs. Yep.
We sold a house on Barkley, up on Simon Ranch.
Yep.
One house on one side of the street, no fire zone.
Yep.
Across the street, yes.
Yep.
Go figure.
Well, it could have been, it was 50 yards closer to
Yeah.
the hill, or it could be it was 50 yards farther away from the fire hydrant.
Yeah.
That house on that side of the street is close enough to the fire hydrant, it's exempt. You're just 5 feet too far away from the fire hydrant, you're now in the zone. Figure it out. Flood hazards, we talked about that. Map zones may change. We talked, and they're talking about the fire zones, which they have maps for. This is why we use the natural hazard disclosure, because they do have detailed maps as to, by the way, it's not just, are you ready? Let me just do the fire ones. State fire responsibility area is different than which we already talked about, a very high fire hazard zone. A special flood hazard area is different than a potential flooding zone. Okay, they're all different, and they all have legal meaning. Okay, building permits and code compliance. We talked about that. Is everything up to code? Has it been built properly? Views. Be careful with the views. I bought the house for this view. Is it guaranteed?
Nope.
Nope. Nothing in life is
Probably
guaranteed.
not. The neighbor should let his tree grow. How come nobody's doing well? Because the city didn't guarantee it, the homeowner association doesn't guarantee it. It was there today, it's gone tomorrow. Sorry. So be careful with your views. Future repair, replacements, remodels. You might have to do something. You might have to replace a roof every now and then. Okay? Golf course disclosure. What happens when you live on a golf course? Do you believe that we have to have this?
Isn't that
Those
dumb?
balls.
Is that the
Wow.
stupidest thing you've ever seen in your life? Having said that, I've sold a couple houses, Marina Valley Ranch.
Yep.
Back of this house, bam, 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 bam. I'm not kidding. 100 pock marks
Oh, wow.
in the stucco. They have like these thick screens. They
Yeah,
come off the windows about 6 inches and they hang down real tight. There's little shields so they don't pop through the windows.
right.
But again, you come on, man. Yeah, okay. It's the hazard. Now this particular house, it was literally in the worst spot possible. Somebody needed to do something other than what they did. But do we have to have a disclosure to live on a golf course?
You didn't see the golf course right there?
Schools, are schools important? Yes. I live in Riverside.
It's just a big long.
I live in the North School District.
Right.
I am a street away from the Pauley School District. Which is better?
Holly.
Pauley. But you know what the crazy part is? North has a better football team, not that that's important. But academically in the last few years, North has actually outpaced Pauley.
Yeah.
Yep.
For resale value, where do people want to live? Pauley.
Mhm.
I'm on the wrong side of the tracks. Okay? I bought it, I'm a realtor, and I knew it. I bought on the wrong side of the tracks. So from my perspective, if schools are important to somebody, and they are, I'm one of those guys who, "Psst, can my kids live with you for the next 10 years? Turn the video off.
Are we all?
Both of my kids lived with Mike and Denise LeBeau for their entire school year. Because they lived on the right side of the track, and I didn't. Neighborhood noise, we already talked about it, right? We already talked about it. We already talked about pets and animals, right? We talked about it.
Yep.
Swimming pool, we didn't talk about swimming pool security and safety. Pools have self-latching gates, covers, fences. You have to have all that sort of stuff. Make sure you're in compliance. Retrofit building requirements. Some cities say you have to change out your toilets, right? Low flow toilets, shower heads, yada, yada, yada. If you're in that area, you gotta know it. Water shortage. My mom and dad live out at Sun Lakes, live on a beautiful golf course out there. I think 2 or 3 times in the last 12 years, in the summertime, guess what their golf course has done?
Let it
They turn the water off,
go.
and it's dead.
Oh.
It's beautiful brown, not beautiful green. Now that's not necessarily, so that's a water conservation deal that the city of Banning or Beaumont, whatever, says, hey, if you have a golf course, tough, we're in an emergency zone here, you can't water your golf course. What are you gonna do? So you gotta deal with that. Neighborhood area potential factors, high-speed rails, smoking restrictions, you can't smoke in the condo. I don't care, I'm selling you a condo. Underground pipelines and utilities, my house in Riverside, I guess probably 30, 40 feet underneath my house is a 10-foot tall culvert, flood control. If that thing was to break away, I'd be one of those guys on the news. That thing would flood my house, would go, that guy just got swallowed in his bedroom.
Yeah, died.
Yeah.
In his bedroom.
Oh, yeah.
That could be me. That could be that guy, because I got one of these pipelines over there. Let's get high, man. All right? Let's get loaded. We got something. We got.
Nowhere to look.
Do you have to disclose this? Marijuana is a big deal.
Just said that on the camera.
What's that?
Let's get
It was in context of the marijuana and the meth labs. You got to disclose them. And again, marijuana anymore. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to get on my high horse one way or the other, but I mean, it seems like everybody's getting high. You know. So I mean, for some people that's a big deal. For other people, it's not. I can't grow weed here. I got my medical marijuana card. It's a whole other story, which I don't have time for because I'm 3 minutes late for my appointment. But I'm going to finish this form because we're so close. Insurance and title foreclosure. This is basic stuff. California Fair Plan. You guys familiar with California Fair Plan? California Fair Plan. Buyers advise that there's special insurance. Hillsides, flooding, brush, so on and so forth. Historical designations. You would think it would be great to buy a house that has a historical designation.
Can't change it anymore.
That's right.
Can be a real headache.
Be careful.